And I do believe I am live. Live, live, live. Yeah, I'm alive. Okay, so hi guys. Let's watch Healed by Grace 2 and it was really good, but I couldn't find the first one. Um, the both of them are on Tubi, so I don't know where you're looking for them. Actually, um, they're also both on YouTube. Come to think of it, the YouTube channel Encourage TV is the YouTube channel of my distributor, Bridgestone Multimedia, and they have both of those. I mean, for what it's worth, my opinion is that the sequel, the one you watched, is really the better of the two movies. It's probably not as much of a tearjerker as the first one, but I certainly would say my skills as a at every level, really, writing scripts, certainly cinematography, scoring, things like that, improved quite a bit between the two pictures. So, anyway, yesterday we were finishing up this shot, and I made a pretty much a dumb mistake. File, save all. I'm gonna go F3 to pop up the schematic, and for some strange reason, oh, I was gonna say it's taken a bit of time to do. Using multiply INO was kind of a stupid thing. That's not the right answer. All I was trying to do was make the shadow semi-transparent, and probably the easiest way to do that is just image adjust levels, and then edit the alpha output. So something like that probably. And then you could arguably blur it as well, but let's just see what that did. Yeah, see that's actually not dense enough, but obviously that worked. So, badoop. If we get this out of the way, we can kind of dial it in. And I think that if we're going to be, as long as we're using post-production effects, why don't we add a blur as well and put a little bit of softness on that shadow. 45 seems like too much to me. Let's do about 18. Yeah, that'll probably be good. Okay, so Control Shift R, and now we can jump over to the show and see it update. So she zips over there, and yeah, not too bad. Okay, so that took care of yesterday's, the last thing that was on the agenda. Luke, taking a quick glance here at the comments. Erev Sexena. I don't think I've seen you here before. So, hey, Maria. It is Animation Day. It's Sunday. At least I think it is. For me, every day is like the other. So, sometimes, yesterday, I'm like, I said to Valerie, what's today? Is today Wednesday or Thursday? And she's like, it's Saturday. I'm such a silly goose. Okay, so now, actually, I should probably go back to this screen. Okay, so let's figure out um, what the objectives are today. What we have coming up next, it might be hard to see. Maybe if I switch back here and put this full screen, this would help. But what we have coming up next is from the other side of the tent. Well, okay, according to the storyboard, we can see Mel's body in the foreground, and presumably you're going to see some wiggling here on this tent. Now, this is a little bit of a kludge in that technically we can't be allowed to see her fingers because Mel is mistaking Tianara for Monkey. He's assuming it's Monkey that's doing that. Okay, so shot number one would be this one, where we're getting the other side of the tent. It pops up a little bit. So I would say we might want to animate a little bit of sort of a little wrinkly shake of the tent, and then it kind of pops up a little bit, and then we'll cut to this, Okay, so for that shot, we can sort of recapitulate this shot, but we just got to get Tianara in there. So that'll work. And then the close-up of the eyes. So potentially, maybe could get those 3 shots done. We'll see. I don't know if that makes sense to you guys, but I hope it does. Since we're going to reuse this shot on number 502, I am going to go ahead and resave this right now as 502. So let's save as not 499, but 502. And before we do anything else, let us adjust the render settings, output settings, I guess I should say. Anybody who's here who's kind of a newbie to Tahoma or OpenToonz, as I often do, I will certainly recommend that one dude you see in the chat named Darren T has a really good channel for learning all things Tahoma and OpenToonz, whereas my focus is more on kind of the real world day-to-day challenges of creating an actual animated cartoon, of which right now I have the first 2 episodes in process because it was conceived as a 2-part pilot kind of situation. And so episode 1 is animated. People always ask me this, so I'm just going to throw it right out there. How far along are you, people say. Episode 1 is animated, and episode 2 is about 2/3 animated. So there's about 10 minutes to go on episode 2. Okay, so hey, Tom Doing Art, welcome to the party. I saw you over on Darren's live stream today. And so the next step would be to jump outside. Hey, Blifton, I saw you on Darren's live stream as well, and hadn't seen you here in a bit, so welcome back. All right, I'm going to go here, and I'm going to actually jump over to this screen. Before I go too far on this shot, I want to kind of scan back to some of the earlier Mel stuff and see. I know it almost sounds ridiculous that I wouldn't know this just from kind of memory, but I just want to look through some of these shots and see if maybe I have an earlier shot that maybe I could repurpose. I don't think so, but I know Mel zips down here. I guess it would probably be around here. Okay, so that's where he's at. That's where we saw him. So I think we really need to do another shot, kind of sort of from scratch-ish. So, hey, Ashnan Benuthipan. I can never say your name. But anyway, welcome to the Bash. The Bash, this is the cool place. Okay, so I'm going to make a new scene. I'm actually going to, I mean, like, as the very first thing you do, saving your scene and then setting up the render settings is probably good policy, because then you, and by the way, this is actually a good example of where I should look at the cast window. Let me see if it, yeah, okay. It seems to be doing a good job of keeping track of the levels. Frankly, better than OpenToonz, as far as I can tell. But we are going to be jumping over to Krita because, I mean, we're starting a new shot from scratch, and this is how I do what I do. So this is going to be shot number 501. Just for reference, what I'm doing is I'm cutting from the clipboard. Over here in Vegas, I use Sony Vegas for editing. You can actually click this and it copies the current frame to the clipboard. And so that lets me come in here, just hit Control V, and then I'll just resize that. It's obviously shrunk down, but that gives me a reference for the shot I'm about to do. And this is shot number 501, so I'm going to go File, Save As. And for reasons I won't get into, it's actually minus 501. And as you can see, we're overwriting the image from the storyboard, which because we have 2 layers in the Krita file, Krita will have the presence of mind to offer to let us also save it as a Krita file. Okay, so now we're ready to rock. So what we're going to do is think about this. Plan your work, work your plan. Taking a quick glance at the messages or the chat where the real cartooning happens. Oh, Darren, you are so kind. Ye trials and errors, definitely. There are plenty of those. And so what I think I'll do is just turn this down a bit, and let's just go ahead and block this in. Now, it is conceivable that Mel's going to move a little bit. So if it's even possible that Mel's going to move, then we probably want to put him on a different layer. The background, actually I'll turn this back up so you guys aren't just kind of looking at something that's completely indecipherable. But what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to animate something in this area, and then potentially, again, maybe a slight lean in or something like that with his body, just to kind of keep that alive. So with that in mind, the tent that where he is basically a pink color, and then we got the ground. So what I'm going to do is block in. I'm going to hit the G key, which for me is the freehand path tool. And I'm just going to go ahead and whoops. It really should be fairly flat to the ground at this point. So those of you who are purists who want to see some good cartooning might be a little frustrated at the moment because oh, I just made a critical error. Common mistake, I was in the wrong layer. Okay, so I'm just going to snake that across there. Okay, and then anyway, those of you who do want to see some fancy schmancy stuff, give it time. I'm just blocking it in. Whenever I do a background painting, I tend to sort of block it in first, just to kind of get the lay of the land, as it were. So now what I'm going to do is actually turn this layer, pull that color. Okay, so this is pretty simple. Ground, tent, ground, tent. Not too complicated. So we'll turn that back off, save our work. Always save early, save often. And I'm going to ignore the glitch on this layer, and the main thing is to get Mel blocked in. So I'm looking on the other screen to just reference his wardrobe. How is the boy dressed? So I'm jumping over here and just kind of looking at what's going on over there. And so a critical error. Oh, nice, nice. Very clever. Very clever. A sigh of genius. A sigh of genius and a critical error. Oh, very fun. The original Disney Parent Trap. Brian Keith was wanting to get rid of the minister because his ex-wife is in the house. The girl he's gonna marry doesn't know she's in the house, so it's this total farce. And they're supposed to rehearse the wedding, and the minister knows that the ex-wife is there, and he's completely laughing about the whole situation. He's got this. Here's this. I find this. You will not find that I am without a sense of humor. I find this whole situation to be absolutely rife with humor. I think that was the line of dialogue. I'm probably in the minority here, but I consider the original Disney Parent Trap to be, despite there are plenty of things you could criticize it about it, but I find it to be one of the all-time funny movies and fun movies. Just a great movie, just a completely silly situation. Anyway, okay, so that's not quite the right color, but that's okay. Again, we're just blocking things in, and since I haven't put any other colors on this layer, what I can do is just go Control M, and we're just going to use the very, very capable curves tool to make some adjustments. So let's just change the hue a little bit. You can see it's easy to rotate it around, and actually that color's pretty darn close to what we want. So then we can go to the RGBA and even pump it up a bit. And I am going to crank some saturation on there as well. There we go. There we go. There we go. Okay, so that's that. Behind, obviously, whatever was drawn earlier. So this isn't a perfect solution in the current scenario because there's actually some stuff that should be behind and some that shouldn't. But again, all I'm trying to do is get this blocked in, right? So if I take this layer from the storyboard and put it up over top, but then put it in multiply mode, oops, not normal, multiply, then I can see what's going on. I mean, I can see the sketch over top. And so I'm kind of giving myself some latitude for how I deal with the lines and stuff. So Shift Alt N, on the other hand, puts it back in normal mode. Okay, so Mel's got his, actually this color's perfect. We'll maybe make it just a little more muted. Okay, so he has these wraps, the Mel wraps, and really that's about it for him in the foreground. And you know what? I think I just did it again. No, I didn't. Okay, I got it right. Okay, cool. So now what we're going to do is let's get, this is backwards. I mean, for most people, this probably, hey, Golden Slime, haven't seen you in a while. Thank you, Maria. Leo G. Carroll, that guy was priceless. I love the way you know that trivia stuff. That's pretty cool. And Brian Keith was awesome. He was outstanding in that picture. Okay, so I'm going to assume, I'm going to save my work, but I'm going to assume that having the ability to articulate all this stuff is not going to be necessary. So what I was about to say a moment ago and never got around to is everything about what I'm doing is, well, one might say bass-ackwards, probably to what one might expect for creating a cartoon. Normally you draw your outlines and then do fill operations and all the rest. And normally I do too. But in this case, because of the way I was kind of working with the storyboard, you know, I just decided I'd block in the shapes. And by the way, this is something you guys may not know. Actually, I'm going to hit undo a couple times and show you something. But anyway, if you go, right, and then it's in multiply mode, and I would say, actually, in this case, I would even go to 3. Right? So in multiply mode, meaning that we can, it's kind of gonna, it's gonna sort of sop up a little bit of the underlying color. Okay, so let's just go with that. I'm gonna click OK. Again, as I say, it's expensive, especially if there's animation. For it to track your drawings and automatically do outlines for you becomes pretty prohibitive after a bit. So what I typically do is just hit Control E and is that right? For flatten the layer, Control Shift E, sorry. Control E is to merge the group. So Control Shift E, and that bakes the outlines in, and so basically Krita just did the outlines on the layer for me. I still have to do the internal outlines, obviously. Let me just double check here. That is interesting. Well, the dialogue is reporting that the color is actually black, but it looked to me like after I baked it in that it had actually changed to the current active foreground color, which is a little strange. Anyway, Control Shift E. Let's take a close look here. I'm going to make one more change. This is something you might not have noticed unless you were really paying attention. On that stroke thing, you can have the strokes be on the outside, inside, or center. Since they are semi-transparent, it would make more sense to have them on the inside. Otherwise, you're going to have this transparent area, well, obviously outside of your character. So it's not like the most useful thing in the world, but it is kind of handy once in a while. So there we go. All right, so now what I'm going to do is, since Krita seems to insist on switching back to my green color instead of my red meaning it's black with a little bit of red tint to it. So now what I'm going to do is go in, hitting Shift, middle mouse button, so I can rotate my canvas. If I hit the Q key, that turns on my stabilizer, which in many cases is kind of good policy. I'm going to go ahead and go over these. This did not work out quite as well as I hoped. So I'm just going to go over it. So the stabilizer is pretty good. Gosh, I think it's, was it Soda Pop? I can't remember. Somebody had mentioned on my live stream and then again on Darren's about some two-word plugin for, well, I don't know. When I looked into it, it was about smoothing, but some kind of third-party commercial smoothing tool, and I think it must do some other stuff too, but I don't know why I brought that up. But I suppose the point was that the smoothing in Krita is pretty darn good, and there's multiple kinds. There's weighted smoothing. I tend to favor the stabilizer. One thing you might not think of is this: not every program that has stabilization does what you're about to see. Did you see what it just did? It actually continued the line through. So when I stopped moving, the stabilizer continued all the way to the end. Now, let's say, for example, if you use the stabilizer in Blender 2.79, I don't know about 2.8. If you didn't have that activated, then this is what would, well, okay, now it's finishing the line anyway. I don't know. So I would call this a holdover from a previous version of Krita, where they probably figured out that only an idiot would want to have a stabilizer that doesn't finish your lines for you. So, sorry to do as I often do, which is lead you down the primrose path of thinking I'm actually going to say something intelligent, when in fact I'm just blowing smoke, baby. Blowing smoke. There it is. Tom doing art. That was Soda Pop. I thought it was. Yeah, he was guilty to me too much because I think the smoothing in Krita and even in OpenToonz, the standard brush smoothing is really good. But then whatever he was saying on Darren's live stream today seemed to, I don't remember what it was, but it seemed to indicate that it wasn't just a smoothing tool. It's got some other capabilities, and also that it integrates seamlessly with OpenToonz. So, I don't know. It seems to me it was a two-word name of the tool, and it seems to me that the first word started with an A, but my memory might be deceiving me. Okay, I'm going to hit the 5 key, which undoes my rotation. So, yeah, I mean, this is looking pretty good. This is looking pretty good. This is looking pretty good, and a little bit of, you know, a little bit of anime line work there just to kind of keep things loosey-goosey and fun. Problem. Mel has a belt. Okay, so I'm going to have to make some mods here. Boom. Just going to do that. And then probably hit the G key and the E key, which lets me, it's basically gives me a lasso erasing type thing. Alright. B, E, which turns that back off. Now I'm back to the brush. And boom. Okay, so we want this color. And I'm just going to hit fill because I'm going to have to redo the outlines anyway, so no big deal. Boom. Boom. So the other thing as far as smoothing goes is, for a lot of people, you know, you can always just use the Bezier tool. Now, when I use the Bezier tool, I tend to drop it 1 pixel compared to what it is on the brush. Otherwise, it looks a little bit fat. But the Bezier tool is awesome for doing inking, you know, if you're into that sort of thing. Boom. you can sort of drag like that. You do have the ability to zoom in or pan your screen even when you're in the middle of a Bezier curve operation. So drag, and then I'm going to just hit enter and end that line. And oops, I made a boo-boo. But you get the idea. Now, if I wasn't actually going over a line that was already drawn before, this would be a little easier. So I'm doing it the safe way, which is just click, 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 as opposed to trying to get the Bezier curves quite the way I want. But basically what you do is you're like, you just drag, and you can see it's going to end wherever my last actual click was, right? So, anywho, more often than not, I just use the brush, frankly, and I want to jump that back up to 4 pixels. Okay, let's go ahead and hit the 5 key and the N key, which shows me the actual size this is supposed to be. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and bake Mel's shadows into him right now. So that I'm going to call this, well, layer, I guess we'll call this ink and paint, since we do have both baked in. I'm going to hit Control G to put that into a group so that I can add another layer, and that layer is going to be alpha locked to the other. Now I hit the G key, black, and then you'll see this is the freehand path tool again. Okay. So you see how the color overlapped right there? See how I went outside the lines? If it's alpha locked like that, then it doesn't go outside the lines. It's going to be cropped to the underlying layers. So give that a little bit of a cast shadow there. That's looking okay. Got a little hiccup there I want to fix. And we're assuming, I think, if I recall correctly, basically the sun would be sort of coming from this way. But he's up close to the tent, though, so his whole body is actually kind of in shadow. That's one of the reasons why I'm not being super careful about his flesh tone. Okay, and then you can just turn the opacity down and dial that in, right? So something like that. I tend to find 11 or 12% seems about right. And in this case, let's go ahead and add one more layer of shadow. I'm going to alpha lock that as well and just make this, essentially I'm creating that rim light effect that I had mentioned to Maria on Darren's live streams. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this one in overlay mode just to see what it looks like. Okay, not horrible. It's a little extreme for sure. But overlay mode as opposed to normal or say multiply, the thing it does for you is it gives you a darker value, but it also pumps up the saturation at the same time. So sometimes that's desirable, sometimes it's not. So okay, in this case, because I plan to possibly animate the whole body as a unit, and I invariably wind up dragging it into Tahoma, or cutting and pasting. I'm going to check a couple things here. I actually, you know, honestly, I think what I probably should do here is, I think this whole thing should be in shadow, except maybe his forearm. It's just yeah, that looks better. Okay, so now this makes a little more sense in overlay mode. I'm just waiting for it to start feeling like not quite right. Okay, I'm going to be bold here, folks. I'm going to grab that and Control E. I'm going to merge the group. I'm going to commit to it. So that group, so that this is now Mel. Again, so we got everything baked together. There is actually another point that should be mentioned now that I'm thinking about it, is that, you know, he's sitting here next to the tent, and ostensibly, as I mentioned earlier, he might just kind of lean forward a little bit, just a little bit of motion, right? You can see how how choppy Krita's behaving right now. I probably should restart it, but for the moment we'll go with it. Okay. So the problem we're going to have is that if his body were to bend in this way, then he would actually come off the page. So I mean, it's just something to be aware of. Probably if I'm really going to try to move him around, it would be sensible. I want to plan on probably scaling him up a little bit in Tahoma so that there's some room to actually have him move a little bit without actually creating blank areas outside the at the edges of the frame. Okay, so I'm gonna hit the solo key and I think I'm just gonna go with that. Okay, so I wonder about one thing as far as cutting and pasting into Tahoma. We're off the edge of the screen. I wonder if the whole character, even the stuff that's off screen that Krita does keep track of, I wonder if that would cut to the clipboard. Whoops, I didn't mean to do that. Okay, so I'm going to come back over here and just see. Probably go there since ultimately that's going to be, this layer is going to be on top anyway. Yeah, actually, okay, so that's kind of interesting. So the actual drawing, even the stuff that's off screen, got copied. So you know what? I'm going to use that to my advantage. What I'll do is I'll go ahead and color this in. This is a pretty kludgy way to do it. Might be better to color it properly over here. So there's a lot of little small issues that are actually coming to light here right now with this particular situation. So I'm going to take half a second here and look at the thank you, Maria, about the shadows. Aaron Blaze, yeah, he's always pretty popular. Where Pen, people always ask me where am I going to find voice actors. Because I'm leaning towards doing a proper casting call. So if we do a proper casting call, Pen, and you want to be a voice, then what will happen is the script sides, as you guys know, we like to call it in the theater world. I never called them sides until I heard theater people say it, actually. But so we post the sides. Typically, what we do, have done with movies, is we create a Facebook group. That's a private group, and anybody who actually gets cast in the show gets added to that group. It's probably not necessary for something like this because pretty much everybody's recording their parts at home or whatever and emailing a WAV file or an MP3. You know, we don't have any location work going on, right? So I haven't really thought about all the logistics of that, but the bottom line is you post a casting call, and then typically what people would do with film was just make a simple recording with their webcam and post it on Facebook, maybe as an unlisted video or something, then send me the link. So last couple movies I did, which have been quite a while ago now, I mean, as far as the casting, it would be actually 5 and 7 years ago, respectively. But all the casting was done, no casting in person, no live in-person casting in a long time. Okay, so where are we here? Okay, so my point was that for this shot, the right thing to do would probably be to go image. I don't really want to resize the canvas, though. I think I'm just going to go with it. So the point that I was kind of making was that you could, if somebody was a purist, what they might do is make the Krita file full HD. You know, my actual output resolution is 1280 by 720, so it's still broadcast HD. Some people might have a cow about that. I happen to have been around the block long enough to know that that doesn't matter, and it's fine. Okay, so we could debate that. But there's also something to be said for the assets, like what this drawing here. actually being in full HD so that you've got a little bit of room to crop or shrink or whatever, um, you know, in the broadcast HD camera space, if you will. So these are all just things you think about on a shot-by-shot basis. I could go R key, sample this, then hit the fill tool. Let's see what that does. Yeah, I mean, you could kind of do a quick and dirty cleanup here, image, by just kind of doing it the old school way. R key, F, you know, just filling that in, then hitting the B for brush, and but this is mostly all going to be off screen. So, but I do want to do this just so we've got a little bit of wiggle room on our character if he's going to be animated. I'm not 100% sure he's going to need to be animated, but it could happen. It could happen to you. It could happen to something. I'm thinking about that song by Yes. Changes, I think it isn't that like 1983 from the 90210 album, which of course Trevor Rabin was their guitar player, and then he went on to get into film scoring. He wrote the score for Armageddon, and which of course that's been quite a while ago, 1998 I believe, and quite a few other films. Talented guy, talented guy. Boom. Okay, so I guess with the my paintbrushes, we don't really have the ability to just dial up the. Well, I'll tell you what we could do to show what I was talking about earlier. I could take, let's take that brush, and then over here, this is not a my paintbrush. This is just a standard brush. So this, hit the B key, hardness. What am I missing here? Apparently the standard brushes on a raster level, as opposed to a smart raster level, don't actually have the smoothing. I did not notice that. Well, that's okay, since the my paintbrushes have the ability to have smoothing baked into them. To which you say, what? They do? How do you do that? It's as I recall, the settings would be, oh come on, the setting would be I think it's the fine speed filter, I believe, was the, no, slow position tracking. If you crank up the slow position tracking, like I'll crank it up, then you begin to get yeah, see that? You begin to get this smoothing thing going on. So if you want smoothing on your my paintbrushes, that's how you do it. Slow position tracking. Now this particular brush I don't want smoothing. So anyway, I think Mel is just about, whoopsie poo, I need a brush, not an eraser. Mel is just about ready for action here. And probably a little bit of a shadow consideration here wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. And also cleaning up the edges on my green. Again, this is probably going to be off screen anyway, actually. So, but if we're going to animate him, going to probably do it with the plastic tool so he can bend a little bit at the hips. So therefore, I'm not going to move this off screen yet. If I was gonna, I'd just hit the A key and move it over here. But you can, I guess I'll demonstrate that. So basically, we scale him up a little bit, and then, you know, ostensibly you could add the plastic tool and have him move a tiny bit. Not too much. But for now, I'm gonna take that keyframe and remove it. File. Just kind of do the usual thing, save all, and now back to Krita. Okay. Do you have a storyboard or something? Dead Penis, you've been here for a while. I can't believe you don't know this. Yeah, dude, the whole episodes 1 and 2 were all complete. Well, I'll put this on the other screen so everyone can see it better. But yeah, episodes 1 and 2. I mean, not only do we have a 50-some page screenplay, but also the both episodes have been thoroughly storyboarded. This is, you know, episode 2. And then basically I'm going along and, you know, the storyboard is the guide. And woe to he who doesn't have a storyboard. That would be silly. Okay, I guess I didn't need to do that right there. Alright, so yeah, there's a storyboard that is definitely the guide for the production. Right? Okay. Now I believe, yeah, I had that in solo mode. So now let's go ahead and deal with this. Let's turn melt off. We'll do just a magic wand selection so we can sort of isolate the green. And now I want to turn mel back on, but what I want to do is just get a little bit of a hue adjustment here on the green so it's not like actually the same exact color of his wraps. Oh, come on. Oops. That's a little extreme, isn't it? Reset. I prefer to move towards the yellow. You know, the ground is a bit blanched or something because of the, well, because there was a drought going on. Okay, so now I'll turn mel back off, and now let's just have nothing but fun with our brush, and let's do some foliage and a little bit of dirt and whatnot. So as you guys can see, I'm right mouse clicking, and the pop-up thing isn't even popping up. So I'm basically kind of sick and tired of. I don't know why Krita's acting a little sluggish today. It could be because it's sort of sat open for 3 days, unused, and so I'm just gonna rerun Krita and see what happens, see if that helps. But yeah, background painting. As I've mentioned before, I did not expect to, when I started doing cartoons, didn't expect to even enjoy doing background paintings. And it's turned into something I actually have a lot of fun with. So, but yeah, this is ridiculous. Krita's acting extremely sluggish today. Just rerunning it is even a little sluggish-ish. Goofy. So what are we doing? We're doing shot number, I need to go back here to the storyboard. This is number 501. Sorry about that. I'm going to turn that preview off. And we want to go to minus 501 ping.cra. .ping.cra. Okay, so now we have our shot back, and hopefully Krita's going to be acting a little less sluggish. Everything's definitely moving slow, though. It's a little weird, actually. It is a little weird how sluggish it's behaving. Why in the world? Now, there we got our pop-up. Now, okay, my foliage brush actually is not in there, so I'm just going to zip down here and grab. Well, there's a bunch of them. Why don't we... That one might not be too bad. Let's do that. Let's do stamp grass. Why not? Okay, so I'm going to go shift and smack this down a little bit. R key to sample the color. I'm sorry, not the R key. That's what you use in Tahoma. Control key and click. And now I'm just going to come up a little bit lighter. And then Alt Q for me with the hotkeys I have set up. That turns off the smoothing again. So I just want to keep this a little loosey-goosey. Loosey-goosey. You know, resist the temptation to introduce too much contrast. Normally when I'm actually doing painting, on the color triangle to click the dot to go to the darker or lighter color, basically as close to the dot as possible, like that, is usually about that's about as much variation you want. Remember, you can always kick it up with the curves tool. You can always kick up the contrast, but to get a little over eager with your with too much contrast variation early is a very, very, very bad idea. Okay, so I'm going to hit Control Shift A so that we don't have this selection. But we're going to have to think about where is this going to bleed over the tent versus not. And also what on the tent is going to be animated. And then we're going to want to put in some patches of ground as well. So I'm just going to be a little sloppy here. I'm not really loving this brush. I haven't used this brush much, and I'm not thrilled with it, but it's okay. So let's go a little bigger. Yeah, that's cool. Like that. Just a little bit of a patch. Okay, so now I'm going to go over here to the sort of the brownish kind of I just want to put in some, I want some patches of dirt, you know. This is not, I mean, there is a drought going on. We don't want it to look too lush. That's for sure. So a little darker. Hello, a little darker. Okay, that's not too horrible. Alright, I'm looking at the messages up here. Blah, 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 blah. Unused, neglected. I also like it. Shadows and okay. Cool beans. Alright, as far as my brush goes, again, not totally loving this. I wonder what this one is. This would be useful. Yeah. I'm going to actually grab this color and oh, no, it's not dark enough. Yeah, a little bit of a edge here would be good. So remember, you never really want to stop thinking about light. You know, if you're going to have a patch of dirt here, then obviously there's light coming down, and at the junction point between where there is some grass and where there's not, you're going to have a shadow. I mean, there's going to be a little bit of a lip there, right? That the light catches and causes a cast shadow. So that feels pretty good to me. If we put Mel back in, you can see, you know, we're pretty close, frankly, to done. And I'm gonna even say at these edges, right at the edge of the tent, that's even gonna create a sense of a little bit of a sense of shadow. So that feels pretty good to me. I'd say we can probably rock and roll with that. So let's say what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and paint the tent, and then put the animated part of it on a separate layer, I think. I think that's what I'm going to do. Alright, so background painting, or background layer. Let's save our work. So what I want to do is go with I think my quintessential paintbrush would be good. Is this the one? Yep, that's the one. Okay, so, whoops, that's not what I intended. Alright, so I'm going to grab that color, and then we're just going to kind of, this is not going to take a lot of time here. I'm just going to want to get a little sense of the folds, you know. It's just kind of the cloth just falls the way it falls, you know. It's, as I've mentioned in other places, if you wanna punch up your shadows, it's not a bad idea to consider using the complement. To which you say, what? What you think? Okay, so so let's just say the light's coming down here, and we've got this shadow area. I need to darken this down as well. But if you want to make this pop a little better, oftentimes what helps with that is go all the way across the color wheel to the exact opposite side and just smack a little bit. And in this case, it would actually be picking up a little bit of reflected light from the grass, actually. So just a little bit of the complement color in the shadows can help punch things up a bit. In this case, I actually want to run maybe a little more towards the blue, actually. That's too much. I've seen, I can't remember what I was watching, but it was some anime or something recently where I noticed that what they did was they had the shadow. It was on rocks. It was basically rocks, and the shadow areas, in terms of value, were really no darker than the lit side. But what they did was they were using the complementary color on the shadow side, so they were able to get that sense of it's a shadow, even though it was hardly any darker at all. I thought that was kind of interesting. Okay, so let's let's tighten up the bottom edge of that in terms of a shadow area. Okay, so that's a little too extreme. So let's okay. So we want to have this sort of a sense of where the edge of that tent is. Now, one thing I would also do is grab this and say, well, if we're going to have that edge, then let's let it catch some light, right? Just a little bit. And even in this case, just to give it some variety, I would even say, what if there was a seam? Okay, so let's say the tent, I mean, it's cloth, right? You have to sew it together, right? So why don't we say, just put in a little indication of a seam, maybe here and here. And then if you're going to have the seam, then you want it to catch a little bit of a highlight. Like that. So these are extremely inexpensive ways to punch up the production value just a skosh. Okay, so now, in this case, I'm also going to, actually I probably want that to be almost like the shadow color. I do want a little bit of grass kind of spanking around the edges here in the foreground, and it would probably be useful compositionally to give just a little something like that in the foreground that suggests that we're bleeding off the page. Okay, so global illumination. Well, yeah, I mean, your global illumination, as far as that goes, would be what I was describing about the complementary color in the shadows, specifically in this case being green, because it's the reflection of the green from the grass that causes it to in fact be global illumination. So anyway, there's that. Alright, so now the question becomes, how are we going to animate this thing? Let me check this real quick. Okay, so obviously there's not much detail over here, but the truth is it probably doesn't matter a whit, for the simple reason that Mel's over top of it. We're not going to see it. So let's go here and put this like there. Okay, so we put that into Tahoma and save all. And then, again, just for simplicity of, oh brother, waiting. Okay, so I'm going to move Mel over here and go ahead and smack him up a little larger like I showed before, just because one less thing I can kind of think about my composition. I'll worry about how I'm going to animate him later. The only reason I say that is that using the plastic tool on him is going to become a problem for this reason. Well, maybe not. Let's see. I was thinking because he's been translated with the Animate tool that's going to... Yes. Okay, so you can see what the problem is. So what you've got to do here is delete this keyframe and then add the, if you're going to use the Animate tool, just use it on the plastic tool layer, not the character layer, right? And so now that gets us back to where we were, and we could use the plastic tool to just give him a little bit of life or motion or whatever if we want to. So File, once again, save all, and jump back to Krita. Okay, so Maria, by the way, back to the voice call. When you're ready to audition, Mrs. T would like to try out for one of your female characters. Hey, yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, I've already got a, I have an audio file that Maria sent me, and I really thought actually she might work quite well for Fala, the slave girl. I will say this: I always reserve the right to get the actual performance and then turn around and fire you. I mean, and say, you know, it turns out. So I always want to give that caveat that, you know, let me say this about cartoons. If you go to Comic-Con and you, or if you just go on YouTube to find stuff from Comic-Con about a famous anime or cartoon, especially a Western thing like Futurama, for example, the thing that people really glom onto more than anything else is the voices. To sit and watch the voices from a show that you like, maybe running a script live, you know, sitting at a table at a convention. People just go bananas over that, and it's amazing because, you know, this is the one thing that I, as the creator of this show, can't really take any credit for. You know, it's like the thing that people get the most Twitter pated about is the one thing I don't do. It's not the musical score. It's not the animation. It's actually the voices. People go bananas over the voices. So that's something to really keep in mind. Point being that you can make her, and Maria knows this with her theater work, is that you can make or break a show or a movie or whatever with your casting. You can have a great script. You can know your craft as far as cinematography and lighting and all the rest. If you cast it wrong, you're going to have a stupid movie on your hands, or a stupid show. So, anyway, all of which is to say, I always want to me, it's kind of like a two-step thing where you figure out what the casting choice is, but then you always have that caveat that once we get it cut into the show, if we find out it's not quite working as well as we hope, then sometimes people get a disappointment and find out, well, we're going to cast somebody else. And that has happened. You know, we have had that happen in production situations. So, but you know, having said that, I'd love to have Mrs. T. I am enthused about the job that Maria could do on the follow, which is a pretty small role, but it's fun. It's cool. Okay, so what are we going to do about this? Here's what we're going to do. We're going to add another layer, and we're going to call this, we'll call this tent move. Okay. Yeah, I'm sure you have, Maria. I'm sure. Okay, so we could, this is a good example where probably the most prudent way to do this, actually, if I want to save myself a little work and not be stupid, what I should do here actually is, let's delete this layer. Now this, what I'm about to show, is probably a good example of, you know, if you're wanting to learn about different little tricks or whatever, this would be a good time to pay attention. Because what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to hit the S key to do a freehand selection. And I'm going to grab this whole region right here. Kind of liberally grab that whole region. And I'm going to go Control C, Control V. And now what I've done is I've made a duplicate on another layer of just the part that's going to be moved. Okay? And so now, if we go to the background layer, and I'm going to hit the tilde key, which for me solos that layer. It would be the same as going isolate active layer. Alright? I'm going to isolate the active layer. And then I'm not going to delete all of this, but I'm going to leave that selection there. And what I'm going to do, methinks, is I think I'm going to hit the brush, sample that color right there, go a little darker, little bigger, And what I'm doing is I'm just mapping what is the, and by the way, this is too big, come to think of it. This tent is only going to get lifted up a little bit. So I'm just going to map what that kind of might look like. Okay? Now if I unsolo the layer, now it's covered up. Okay? And so now what we can do, let's save our work. Always save, save, save. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and turn the opacity of this layer down a little bit so that I can see clearly where the tent is. This layer, which is, this is kind of my guide. And by the way, another thing in Krita is even if you have your layers semi-transparent, when you isolate the layer, they become fully opaque, which is generally a good thing. It does make it a little easier to kind of see what you're doing. But I'm going to delete that guide layer. It's not needed anymore. So what we're after here is we want to animate the cloth, right? She's excited to try it. She's watching your stream with me at the moment. Okay, cool. I love it. Mrs. T. Mrs. T. Darren, you got to convince her to come onto your live stream so we can all see her sometime. See her and say hello. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to come back to here, and then this is the only thing that I'm going to animate. And to be clear, this could, you know what? Not only it could be done, but it probably should be done in Tahoma. Come to think of it, this should actually be done with the plastic tool. And I'm gonna do that because. And then what we'll do is we'll add an extra layer over top of it after we animate it in order to delineate the wrinkles and stuff. So that may not make perfect sense to you guys yet, but I think it's going to make a lot of sense here in a minute. So let me go ahead and turn my background back up. I'm going to solo that layer. So this is what we're starting with. So I'm going to hit Control A, Control C, and I'm going to update this in Tahoma. Go into the image. I'm going to hit the S key, again Control A just for completeness, and then hit Control V. Okay, so there's where it's going to end up. Now on this layer, what we're going to do is animate the not Mel, this region. Okay, so again I'm going to hit Control C. Now what Tahoma is going to do when it cuts across on the clipboard is it's going to center it. Sorry, Control V. Hello, Control V. There it goes. Okay, yep, so what we're going to do now is, just to be safe, I'm going to turn all these guys off. I'm going to hit the S key, and before I get involved with the plastic tool, I'm just going to take this and just get this dialed in about right. Okay? Alright, let's save all. Hi from Nottingham. Wow, Nottingham, huh? That's so cool. All we know about Nottingham around here is Robin Hood. Okay, so actually, the good news is that all of the assets for the shot are done. All right, so I can go ahead and save this, and basically we're done with Krita. So it helped us to do some nice painting because the tools are a little better than what we have in Tahoma, but really the crux of the animation needs to happen here. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to go X, and we're going to invoke the plastic tool. Now this is going to be a good exercise because it's a little different probably than what you might be used to with the plastic tool. Okay. Hey Enio-san, welcome to the party. Alright, so what I'm going to do also is kind of stretch all of these down. I'm thinking that I'm waving my hand to feel the timing of it. It's going to kind of shake a little bit and then lift up. So, you know, this is probably a 3-second operation or something. So just to be liberal, we'll give it 5 seconds of, you know, potentially 8 frames a second, 40 seconds. 8 times 5 is 40. So we'll go with that. Okay, so now what we want to do is we want to create a skeleton. And this is what I was talking about. It's going to be a little different. I want to think about this for a second. What we've got to do in this case is we're looking for the kind of flexibility you get if you were mapping an image to a plane in Blender and using shape keys. We want that level of flexibility. How do we get that? We have to be really careful about what we allow to be deformed and what we don't. So here's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking what we can do is let's put the root up here, and I always give myself a couple joints or bones, nodes, whatever you want to call them, to get into it. And then I'm going to say this is going to be, I'm going to give this 2. Actually, you know what I'm going to do? Let me think about this. I really want to think about this carefully. Okay, so I'm going to do this in a very unusual way. It's going to look like crab legs or something crawling around here. Because I want to be able to really get specific about how this moves. Okay, so now I'm thinking maybe I'll put a couple nodes out here as well. And the good news is we can always make adjustments to the skeleton after the fact. But the other thing I want to do that's really important is I want to wrap a bunch of joints or nodes around here, so that the outside part of this cannot move. So these will not be animated. Those are being put there so that these nodes are influencing the mesh, and thus when the nodes that are in the middle get animated, these guys will protect the outside edge so it doesn't move at all. Hope that makes sense. Okay? All right, we're really flying blind here. We're going to just give it a crack. Okay, so now the same thing I did in Krita, I'm going to do here. I'm going to turn the opacity of the layer down just so I can better see what I'm doing. Okay? Now, let's put in a global key right at the start. I'll just wiggle this one a little bit. And that should put in a keyframe because I always want to have a half a second or so to get into the shot, right? 4 frames, half a second to get into the shot for editing purposes. It oftentimes gets chopped back off at the editing stage, but it gives you that flexibility. So now the question becomes, well, what's going to happen? What I'm feeling is, I'm feeling a up, up. So okay, I'm totally spitballing here, but what I think is essentially thirds of a second. That does feel pretty good, I must say. Okay, so then it's gonna kind of come back probably kind of quickly. All right, and then I'm gonna lock this. In other words, duplicate this key so that it holds still in between. And then another. You can see that keep distance is not activated right now. That allows me to actually stretch the nodes a little bit. So this is a good example of, you know, I mean, to try to do what I'm doing here, like with facial animation, I don't think you'd be able to pull it off. I've tried it. It'd be nice if you could really dink with people's expressions. We've got more flexibility here because we're not so familiar with what the cloth of a tent looks like as far as compared to a face. Okay, this is not too bad. Okay, this is not too bad. I'm gonna say let's grab this and maybe be just a little bit more slow about it. Okay. Okay, I don't like the way it kind of all moves off to the to stage right. So I'm thinking here I want to maybe straighten that back out. And then we're going to adjust the underlying drawing as well to fill in the area that needs to be black that isn't yet. But I'm actually really impressed with how that worked. Um, Capoi Alos. You animate in 8 frames per second. I do. I do. I mean, I don't. Everything I've ever done hasn't been 8 frames a second. When I was working on an Animate thing before I started working on this show, I was working at 24, but in practice it really was 12. Right? I was doing a lot of stuff on 2s. With this show, it's partly for aesthetic reasons and partly for economic reasons. I'm animating at 12 frames or at 8 frames a second. So very much like anime. I mean, it's basically an anime kind of thing. Okay, now the question becomes, do we want to actually have 2 of these little poppy poos? And I'm going to say, I'm going to give it a crack. It can't hurt to try. I'm just going to go ahead and just wiggle it a little bit. Yeah, I like that. Isn't that cool? When it makes me laugh, that's usually a good sign. So I'm gonna save all, and now let's go ahead and darken this back out. In other words, turn off the opacity. KP, okay, all right, right on, KP. Thanks for being here today. This is cool. All right, so now I'm gonna go ahead and hide the mesh like that, and so as you can see, we've got a little bit of a problem in the underlying background painting. Okay, so I've got to eyeball it though, because if I start drawing, well, actually, gosh, Darren and I, if I start drawing here, I think I need to change something in my settings if I want to start drawing here and not have it create another drawing. I don't want it to create another drawing. What I want to do is just go in here, grab this brush, hit the R key to sample this color, and then we're just gonna ramp this up a little hotter, like that. And I think that will do the trick. So Shift spacebar, and then Control spacebar to, zoom and rotate accordingly. And I think that will do the trick. Let's see. Not quite. Not quite. Boom. So we still need to get a little bit more shadow over here. So I'm kind of glad this shot went the way it did, because I think this is a really, really interesting exercise. Another thing we could do to make it even more interesting, oh yeah, Shift Alt R, would be to allow some of that grass to pop up underneath. I think that would be super cool. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to make a duplicate here. So again, Shift Alt R to reset the rotation. All right, and then what I'm going to do is we're going to put in an indication of the grass, because when we're first looking at it, we're not going to see this, obviously. It's going to be revealed as the edge of the tent lifts up. So I have a feeling this is actually going to look quite cool. Totally making this up as I go along, folks. Trust me. I don't know what's going to work. I have no idea. But I can dream, can't I? I can hope. Alright, R key, sample, B key. So yeah, I do tend to favor, for random painting, I tend to favor the My Paint brushes here in OpenToonz and or Tahoma. Alright, so we'll just see. Okay, that I feel like I went too far. So I'm going to go ahead and sample that, and because what I'm wanting to do is I want to have a sense of, it's pretty simple coloring. This is a cartoon after all. It's not some kind of wildlife painting or something. But I would like to see that sort of silhouette of the grass appear as the lip of the tent comes up. Not too bad. I'm going to say over here, I'm going to go ahead and paint and let it be another. Okay, that was a mistake. Didn't mean to do that. I should have hit the D key first. All right, that's all right. Let's just go over here. So I want it to look really sort of scratchy and scrumbly. Well, I like that mesh motion. Check it out later today. There's never enough hours in the day. I disagree. I think there are enough hours in the day. Yeah, just being contrary here, folks. Just being contrary. Okay. So my concept, of course, is to have it look pretty flat. And by the way, I'm going to go ahead and kind of help this out a bit too. All right. Let's grab this color, methinks, and then just kind of add a little bit of a little kiss of that over there. It's actually a little too contrasty. Maybe that would be good. Yeah, that's better. Okay. So, just a little kind of, you know, a little this and a little that here and there, if you're judicious about it, can look quite nice. It's just really easy to overdo it, and it's definitely easy to accidentally make it look man-made, you know, too symmetrical or whatever, too rhythmic, if you will. Okay, let's turn Mel back on. That's not too bad. It's arguable, though, that, well, it's not even arguable. It's actually obvious that that color is a little too light. So what I'm going to do is go down here, and I'm going to hit the R key. Well, I guess I'm not going to hit the R key. I'm going to go here and sample that color. Yeah, that color. And then go over to this painting. And we're going to darken this up a bit. So, once again, Control Space Bar, B key. So I want to make this match. So we're doing a little bit of, essentially, well, I mean, it's kind of like old school special effects, you know, like matte painting. Got to make everything match up. E key, probably we can trim that out just a bit. Yeah, there we go. Okay, N, that's our actual size. K key to rewind. I like that. I do like that. The only thing it's bugging me a bit. You know what, you guys, we're gonna really drive this home. We're gonna actually put in the cast shadow. Yep. This is gonna be a pretty spanking shot. It's too bad because it's gonna be a totally unsung shot too. It's gonna be a shot that will be utterly forgotten in the annals of this show, but yet in terms of coolness factor, it's actually one of the coolest shots. And you'll see why. All right, R key. I'm feeling like there's a little too much of this green bleeding through. Stop bleeding through, you greenness. All right, let me look at here. We're still not quite there. It's right here. Diggity dog. Diggity dog. Maybe that'll do the trick. Ah, we're so close. This would be easier if, you know, I don't want to paint in the X sheet because then I'm going to be creating new keyframes, and I don't want to go into my preferences and change the settings so that that doesn't happen. I'm being a little bit stupid right now. In case, for those of you who don't know that I'm stupid, just be aware. be aware. I mean, look at that. Look at that little green edge right there. Right? It's right there. Cuss you, red button. Right by the seam. It must be that. There we go. Well, I'm still getting a little bit over here, but that you probably wouldn't notice. But this other part, boy, oh boy. Okay, so what was I talking about? The okay, that did not work. The shadow. What I want to do is I'm going to use a vector layer. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and hit insert, and nothing's going to happen. And Tahoma's got to think. Okay, what we're going to do is we're going to add a vector layer, or level. Vector level. It's not a layer, David. It's a level. Okay. And we're going to, actually what we're going to do is we're going to first hit the B key. We're going to draw a shape like that and let Tahoma fill it in. Now I'm going to turn the opacity of that down to something like that. Okay. Now, what we're going to do is take this to here. Okay, right here, I guess we probably need a transition, so let's put on a yes. Putting on the onion skins so that I can see the prior frame. Whoopsie poo. I'm going to redo that one. Okay. Stretch that to there. Just stretch that to there. Yep, and then a little bit of change, So we're going to go like that, kiss that out there just a little bit. And does this move? It does, unfortunately. I'm thinking we can probably get away with not sweating that particular move. That's pretty subtle. Now, this part, we're going to have to animate. 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 And finally, okay. So, there we go. I didn't really have to do that, but I kind of just felt like it would be cool. So now what we've got to do, File, Save All, is we're going to have to turn that opacity of that shadow down. Okay. Assign to save. I think you mean time to save. Is that right? You know, and I have gotten a little lazy, I suppose, because it's just been, I mean, Krita and Tahoma both have just been so stable in the current versions. So anyway, effects on this, I'm going to take this and I'm going to do the same thing I did on the yesterday's shot. I'm going to add a blur. Actually, yeah, okay. And then I'm going to add a adjust levels. And we're going to crank down the alpha output. Turning down the opacity output, if you will. So if we looked at that rendered, guys, this is going to be pretty cool. This is going to be a cool shot. All right. I think we're good. I think we're good. Now, do we want to fiddle a bit with the wrinkles? I don't think we need to. I'm going to hit Control R, not Control Shift R. I'm not going to render it to file yet. I just want to the shadow's a little bit chattery. There's one spot where the shadow seems to be coming to life, and that's not a good thing. So let's turn this. Right there. Yes. I'm going to try deleting that and just extending that. I think that's probably better. Okay, so let me go to the schematic, and the blur is a little too much. Everything looks too soft and squishy. I'm going to make that a very gentle blur. Probably we don't need it at all is the truth of the matter. But okay, and then the alpha, I want a little less alpha. I want that to be a little more transparent. Control R. So we're just going to do the old preview thing. Yes. Okay. Boom. Yeah. Yeah, not too bad. Not too bad. Is there any reason why we really need to animate Mel? Maybe. Actually, come to think of it, let's just rock and roll on this thing in a hurry and see what we get. Okay, so I'm going to hit the X key, and we're going to create a skeleton for Mel. We want to be able to turn him essentially at the hips, so I'm going to say let's give him these joints. All right, this is going to be essentially to protect his leg. Arm. If this was going to actually bend a bit, this is probably kooky, but I'm going to try it this way. I'm actually going to try it this way. I'm going to bend this back up like that. This might not work at all, but I'm going to just see. Okay, and let's turn keep distance on. Okay, yeah, those really should be parented together, shouldn't they? Okay, so the question was, is he going to lean forward? So he sees that. Let's just go with this and see what happens. We can always change our mind. All right, and then I'm going to have him be a little startled. So it's a one framer. Okay, and then Control C, Control V, and then maybe just a little lean in. A slow lean in. Actually not too bad. Because it's going to cut right to Mel, you know, from his point of view. So I think storytelling-wise we're... Okay, and it's actually going to cut inside the tent to Tianara, show her eye peeking through, and Mel's going to be sitting there going, what? Okay. So... Oh, I see, with the flag and the vector. Is it a mini-series? It's a well, it's basically a series where there are 12 episodes that are planned. 2 are written and, you know, largely produced, and we have a story arc, you know, that carries over 12 episodes that potentially could be extended to continue, you know, endlessly or whatever. But Darren says the great thing about using the vector autofill shapes is you can edit it with the control plate editor after it's drawn. Yeah, that's true. I haven't been hitting the old C key too much lately, but that certainly is something that is available to do. It is available. All right. Okay, so I'm actually feeling pretty good about this. Let's say this is shot 501. I believe I already set up my render settings, my output settings to use the proper. No, I didn't. Dave. You naughty, naughty boy. This is supposed to be in scenes 501 render. And that's going to be a problem because I just put those in uppercase. And I think that's going to create a problem. Oh, come on. Scenes 501 render. Oh, come on. I keep hitting the period instead of the slash. Okay, and these are supposed to be JPEGs for final output. Boom. So we're going to let that render, and I'm going to jump over to my other screen. And my 501 is going to be deleted from my storyboard. We can go ahead and clean the media pool too. And let's go to Project Media. We're going to open shot number 501. There it is. And it rendered just as we hoped it would into the right location at 8 frames a second. And 501, there it is. And we smack it into the show. We turn off resampling because resampling is stupid. And let's see here, Tianara. So she goes over, she reaches down, and now we're outside. Okay, so right there's an edit issue. Once she reaches down, boom. We gotta cut away. We can't be languishing on that for any length of time. So she reaches down. Oh, that's cool. That is cool. Guys, is that cool? Am I right? I'm going to pop this up on the big screen. I'm feeling like this is cool. Let's backtrack a little bit and just enjoy our show for a hot second. 5:30. Let's go from about 4:30. So yeah, Tianara, she spied Monkey sneaking a date, gives him a wink, and then she notices, this might be an avenue of escape. Golik says, I see you finally come to your senses. Well, she hates Golik, but she wants to play the game. I have. And I have you to thank, good Golik. Golik's like, what game is she playing? And she says it's an honor to have this opportunity to be married to the prince against her will. Very good. And cover your face. The prince will be along shortly. So then, this is the shot we did, I think, yesterday, a couple days ago. Golik leaves. Now she's taking inventory of her situation. She spies her avenue of escape, perhaps. Reaches down, and then this is the shot we did just now. Dudes, guys, come on. I mean, I gotta say, I am feeling pretty. I'm liking it, man. All right, so let's turn that off. Yeah, I'm liking it. This has been. I'm glad I did this shot. This is a great example of where, it's not character animation so much, but yet, the right concept and the right storytelling and the right editing all working together just kind of drives you through it. Keeps carrying you through the story. That's what you want. So yeah, good stuff. All right, so now let's not waste any time jumping over to the next shot, which is 502. So I'm gonna go like that. And so what we've got to do here, let's see here. Okay, we had the zoom in. I think probably for our purposes on this shot we should undo the smash zoom. I don't think we need the smash zoom in there. We need a little wider shot for Tianara. One question I have though is she? Yeah, so she's gonna reach down. She's got to reach down. Well, actually no. As a matter of fact, we don't have to animate her too much. Okay, again, I don't know if you guys can see this. We don't have to animate her too much because we saw this lip of the tent cloth. We saw it move in the other shot. So there's no reason we have to, you know, show. I mean, we could do maybe a little plastic tool on her arm just because, just to show a little bit of motion. But what we need to do now, step one, this is really important. Step one right now, out of the gate, is we've got to take this background painting and create another frame. And boy, oh boy, I got to be careful here. Okay, this is actually the, so we're definitely going to make a duplicate of this. So let's duplicate that. And then let's go in here. I think the simplest solution is to immediately just repaint this, get her done, and then we'll worry about making it all work with the actual background here shortly. So step one is going to be to take this. And by the way, she'll be, her position, animated or not, will be based on however I draw this, basically. I hope that makes sense. So what I'm going to do is, I think for our purposes, since we're cutting back and we never see this foliage, I'm going to go ahead and just cut that out and basically pretend it was never there in the first place. Because nobody's going to remember from 3 shots ago that there was some foliage that seems to be missing now, especially since her body is basically covering this whole area. So we're going to be a little bit naughty. Okay, so there's our brush. Hit the R key. Now what I want to do is I want to block in the basic concept of the curvature that's going to happen, and then fix everything else around it. So basically you've got this. We're going to have a little bit of a swoop. Okay. Here, I'm going to hit the R key again so I can sample this color. A little bit of a swoop. Okay, and then same thing here. This is, you know, we've got this lip, so we need to put that lip in there. We'll worry about the shadows and highlights and shadows here shortly. Okay. All right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to start fixing around that and making it work. Okay, so this is going to kind of swoop down too, like that. So these cloth, you know, folds are sort of emerging naturally, is what we're going to try to do. And frankly, I don't really want to animate it. I mean, that's probably a lot of work for. You think about how much storytelling benefit we got from seeing that little bit of plastic tool on the tent, on the cloth. Okay, we're not going to get that same benefit here. If we animate her, you know, her arm moves a little bit. You could do it, but there's not a good reason to. We're not going to get that same storytelling benefit from moving things just because we can. So as far as I'm concerned, the objective here is to make, this is going to be just a static shot that shows us what the heck is going on. It's only going to be on the screen for probably about a second, maybe 2. And then we're going to be cutting to outside with a tight close-up where we see her eye peeking through the hole, darting around. All right, so everybody's got the groove on what we're doing here storytelling-wise. Okay, so this is just going to be some sort of wrinkles. And now what we're going to do is, I think I'll go ahead and use the oil paint brush in this case to just do some smoothing. So I'm going to put this to 0. Yeah, that's going to work. Okay, so now we can do a little bit of blending and smooth this out a bit. Yeah, that'll work. Yeah, I'm glad to hear, Darren, if you're still there, I'm glad to hear that the missus is interested in trying some voice work. I think that would be super cool. Well, I tell you, the one she's going to probably want to try is Carliana, is Tianara's mother. Because, one reason being, now I'm going to assume that Mrs. T has the ability to fudge a non-British accent if she had to. I'll just assume that. But even so, to have Tianara's mother I'm thinking about the way actors back in the 1930s spoke, in movies like Frankenstein. They always spoke like this. It was an affected, it was an American accent. In point of fact, you heard it in Franklin Roosevelt to a degree. It wasn't British, but it was an erudite style, common in the theater, especially, that didn't work its way out of film until roughly after the war, 1940 some. So that type of sort of nose in the air erudition might be appropriate to Tianara's mother, you know. So, I'm just thinking out loud here, but that might be a interesting thing to might be an interesting angle on that character. And as in Disney movies, the fact that some characters have accents and others don't, we'll just ignore that. I mean, The Parent Trap, to mention that one again, is obviously the quintessential example. How did these two American parents wind up with a daughter, well, twin daughters, who both speak with a British accent? Makes absolutely no freaking sense at all, but yet Disney did that kind of stuff all the time. So yeah, this is feeling pretty good, right? This is okay. Maybe not going to win any, they're not going to be putting it in the lube. However, let's look at this. Okay, so this shot needs to be deleted. Yeah, they're definitely not going to be putting it in the loop. Okay, that was a mistake. I'm going to hit undo. What I want to do is, let's just delete that frame. Smack this in here so that we can then delete the rest and make it work. Boom. Okay. This is okay. Okay, so the problem we're going to have here is the same thing we had on the other side. Is that what it's called, Tom? Transatlantic? I've never known what it was actually called. For me, the thing that I always found funny was the idea of a guy in a white lab coat, like some scientist guy that's crying out, "No, no, you don't understand. You don't understand. The world is going to end." That type of a thing I always thought was kind of funny. But then again, I have a little bit of a strange sense of humor, I suppose. All right, so this needs to be duplicated. Hit the D key. And then what we're going to do is, so I don't bump into the problem I had a moment ago. What I'm going to do is take this drawing or painting and drag it to a brand new level so I can drag it back over here and then just delete this level. Because the problem is if you delete all the images in the level, then access to the drawing strip disappears. So you want to have some reference to it somewhere in the X sheet. I know, Darren, I know. There's ways around that, but for most people's purposes here, I think that's probably the right advice. Okay, so I'm going to go here, and because we're on frame 1, I can just go ahead and paint into it. So I'm going to take my oil paint brush. Let's sample probably a little bit darker color like that, and then we're just going to paint this, and it's going to be big brush, as Peter Ellenshaw would say. Yeah, just do the big brush thing and just smooth that out a bit. So there's really no reason in this case that the background painting needed to be two different paintings, okay? Two different layers. There was really no great reason for that, but that's just kind of the way it worked out because it was a holdover from the earlier shot that I did. So I'm going to just darken this a little bit so I can just smack a little bit more shadow under there. And the only thing I would probably still tweak a bit would be, it does seem to me that we're not getting quite enough smoothness in a little bit of this. As far as the wrinkles, we don't want it to look too much like a a proper oil painting or anything, because I mean, again, this is a cartoon. But okay, let's see here. This is all of this. It does not need to be in here. All of it. We're gonna get rid of all of it. Boom. And boom, and gone. Okay. I guess I'll just delete the whole column so that we get rid of the animation keyframes and everything. File, save all. Okay. So jumping up to, it is transatlantic. Thank you for confirming that, Maria. I did not realize what that was called. Oh yes. Well, if she was going to, if Mrs. T were going to do it, that this is her, this would probably be the attitude. Tianara, you ought to be grateful. You ought to be grateful for this opportunity. It will be good for our family. That's kind of what I'm thinking. Something along those lines is probably. And that is, in fact, like one of the lines of dialogue that does appear in the show. Okay, the other thing we can do is on this background painting is ultimately we could probably bake TNR's shadow into it, truth be known. Alright, so let's do a quick sketchy poo so that we're not totally spitting in the wind here. So I'm going to just, okay, stop. What the heck just happened? Do we have camera animation in here? Why would this? I'm going to, okay, step one. I'm going to clean my cast. Yeah, here we go. Okay, well, here's what I'm going to do. Let me backpedal one step. I'm going to hit undo so that that level never got created. And then I'm going to go to my cast, and I'm going to remove all unused levels, because what I think I had is under the hood, we had a level that had a translation on it that was inadvertently parenting the level I just started to draw. The result of which is once I started drawing, the actual bounding box of the drawing was in the wrong place. And it's still in the wrong place. That's weird. Let's hit F3 and see what's going on here. Probably we want to look at the state schematic. You know, at the risk of being stupid, what am I missing here? Well, that's right, Darren. And by the way, Darren, do you see what's going on here? This is a little strange. This layer that I just created is not parented to anything else. And there's no keyframe that one can see. And yet, so over here in the effects schematic, we've still got a lot of garbage that we probably should clean out. Column 1, column 2, yeah, so this is all good. But why in the world is this? Well, I guess what we can do is we can just adjust. Okay, there we go. I'm just going to adjust it. That's very weird, though. Oh, it's because there was a keyframe downstream. Okay, never mind. My bad. Delete this. Here's the problem. If you have a keyframe way downstream like this that you forgot was there, it affects everything north of it. So you don't actually have to have an explicit keyframe on frame 1 to set the initial position. Now that's a good thing. That usually makes it, it's kind of like one less step you have to take to put in like a dummy keyframe to sort of get everything in the right place to begin with. But anyway, okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to add another color, and just because I like to, because it just feels sketchy and all that sort of thing, I'm going to grab the charcoal brush so that I can just kind of sketch what I'm wanting to see here. Okay, so we've got this hand. We've got to be careful, even though her arm is certainly, you know, she would have a grip on the cloth, but we're giving ourselves a little bit of latitude here on that point. In other words, Mel you know, theoretically, he can't see the fingers. That's actually important in this case because he naturally assumes that the whatever's fiddling with the edge of the tent is the monkey that he saw climb down there in the first place, or climb into the tent a little bit ago. Okay, so I'm just gonna try to say, oh, there's a neck. Her head is craned around. She would have a shoulder kind of jerked back here. Right? Okay. So this is a very awkward position for her to be in, that's for sure. But, it works. Okay, so now I'm going to take my eraser and get rid of some of these guidelines so I can better see what I'm doing. Okay, so B key, you know, she's got this, you know, headdress. So we have to sort of accommodate that a bit. And then okay, and then basically we want to see her butt kind of lifting up into the air. You know, her spine into her derriere. Because she does have a derriere, as do most of us. Well, you'd be crying if you didn't have a derriere. Okay, so there's her, this is her hand kind of splayed out, bearing her weight, if you will. Making sense, folks? I think so. Okay. Checking the... I love the charcoal brush, and it's one of my favorites. Kill. Yes. See, Darren. See, you guys? You see? This is why Darren is the man. Because he sees these problems that I'm sitting here going, what's going on? What's going on? But he's the OpenToonz guru, dude. And the world needs an OpenToonz guru, dude. Okay, should I or shouldn't I? Darren's going, don't do it, Dave. Don't do it. I know what you're thinking, Dave. Don't do it. Okay. I was thinking about putting the ink on the same level as the sketch. But because I know Darren is screaming at his computer screen at the moment, don't do it, Dave. I'm going to be respectful and follow the rules. Okay, so with that, you guys, we have smoothing. I mentioned smoothing earlier, so why don't we crank the smoothing up to a respectable value just so we can see how awesome it is. Right? Okay, awesome. Yeah, actually, it is quite awesome. I think the smoothing in Tahoma is very, very good. And it looks like it does finish your line for you, too. Am I wrong? I'm thinking it didn't used to. So now you Krita purists out there going, wait a second, Dave, I thought you created all your assets in Krita. Why are you drawing her in Tahoma? And by the way, I use the word Tahoma and OpenToonz pretty much interchangeably, since they are basically the same program. And I'm not going to explain right now what a fork is. If you don't know what a fork is, Google it, because Tahoma is a fork of OpenToonz. All right, but yeah, I think the smoothing here is quite nice. Okay, so we got to put a little wrinkle there. This is not going to be on the screen long enough for us to belabor. Okay, so can we really tell that her head is oriented this way? So her ear would be here, but it's all covered up by the headdress, right? So can we really tell that? I would say the answer is no, but I would also say the answer is it doesn't matter, because we're going to pop onto the screen for like 1 second, and then we're going to be popping back to the outside where we see her eyeball peeking peeking out. So, and it's my show, so I get to decide. Boom. Okay. Little wrinkle action there. Little, maybe just a little something. Boom. Boom. This is kind of an unfortunate fact that I guess what we could do is go like that and just leave this open. So that way we can get a solid fill on this whole area, and it should work as long as we don't have any leaks. Leaks will get you. Yeah, those leaks will get you. They'll get you every time. Oh my goodness, we don't want leaks. Last time I had a leak, I thought it was an onion. Yeah, if you don't get that joke, you probably don't do much gardening. Yeah. Maria's going, Dave, really? Leeks, onions, har, har, har. But I know Maria knows what a leek is. How do I know she knows? I don't know how I know she knows, but I just have a really strong feeling that she knows what a leek is. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to hit the eraser, and as you can see, we got this little option here called selective. When selective is selected, you can erase just the active color, which is quite nice. Okay, I'm going to hit the F key and fill that hand, and then I'm going to fill that hand. All right, and then we're going to turn this into a flesh tone, but for Tianara, we want to push a little bit towards the yellow, a little bit to the olive end of the spectrum. And then actually her skin is slightly darker too. All right, so let's add another color. This is going to be her headdress, which is darker. Yes, okay, so that's going to be something like that. Hit the F key. Smack that around like that. Let's duplicate that, do a lighter version of it, and then that's going to give us, I don't know if this is going to work the way I'm lassoing it, but we'll give it a crack. Boom. Ah, it worked. Okay. So, well, except for one thing. Okay, so if you ever have this happen to you, like I've filled this whole area in, but this area right here isn't supposed to be filled. What you can do is go to color 0, which is actually transparent, and just click, and that'll get rid of it. You shall it, tell a lie. You shall it, tell a lie. Oh, that's a good one. Oh, that's a good one. Good joke. Yeah. Okay, so I definitely think we're probably going to do the old camera move thing. The next step is let's just delete this level. There's no reason for it to be in there. And so this is what it actually looks like. I would say, this is kind of interesting. This is more interesting than I expected. Excuse me, I expected it to be. Sorry to burp in your ears there, people. I'm seeing a few things that are bugging me a bit. First of all, I may have had a stupid attack. Sorry about that. And she really should be there. Shoot. Well, let's make her a little bigger. Okay, that's fine. If she bleeds off the shot slightly. Let me think about it. Okay, step 1. Her colors in general should be a little bit more. I'm going to take about 10% or 20 off of her colors, because she is definitely clamoring around in the shadows. And frankly, if I do that, I don't even know if I need to do shadows on her wardrobe. What I do want to do, though, is put a shadow underneath her. So I'm going to hit the insert key, and we're going to stick in a vector layer, which is kind of just the way I've been doing it lately, and give her a cast shadow. Okay, so the B key, . All right, so got a cast shadow. And yeah, we will definitely blur that. All right, so I'm going to actually add a little bit more volume to that shadow there. And then for those of you who are wondering, hey Dave, what about the shadows on the character? Ain't you gonna do nothing about that? Yes. Be patient, people. Okay, that was supposed to fill automatically. Let's redo that. Okay. Oh, stupid. This needs to be a vector layer. Okay. Well, nice thing about vectors, one nice thing about vectors is they effectively have a infinite canvas. So this layer is for the shadows on Tianara, and so we'll be alpha locking it the way I did in Krita through the Tahoma schematic. Okay. What are you talking about, Dave? I don't even know what you just said. Yeah, right. I understand. Okay, so here's how we do it. Step 1. Let's deal with this. Hit F3, go into the FX schematic, and this is column 3. What we want to do is 2 things. Number 1, we do want to blur it. Blur. The blur probably needs to be about 10 pixels. And then we want to also insert an image adjustment, adjust levels, and we want to make it somewhat more transparent. Something probably like that. Okay? And as you can see, when we put it in render mode, look at that. Isn't that pretty? That's really pretty. Okay, so now this is the cast shadow. Or I'm sorry, the character's shadow. So what we're going to do on this is we're going to combine this with level or column 4. Alright, and this is going to be, I tend to prefer doing it this way. There's more than one way to do it. I like multiply INO. The foreground is the shadow, the background is the character, and that clamps the character, the shadow to the character. And also we can then turn the opacity down to the usual suspect, which is around 11-12%, somewhere in that neighborhood. Okay, so this is the shot. The question becomes then, do we want to wiggle her a little bit? I don't think we need to, honestly. I think what we probably should do is just push the camera in, which we can do in Vegas. So this is shot number 502. Dead Pianist has a couple comments. 2 hours, 2 shots. Yeah, we're doing okay. I mean, I'm trying to average 15 seconds a day. I can do 30, but it's hard. It gets kind of old, and so yeah, I don't know if you know, the new Ghibli's 3D movie Earwig has a lot of lighting issues. Like Kitchen Twilight has the same lighting, same shadow level. Yeah, I will say this. I saw a video on YouTube about that Ghibli 3D movie, and it was not complimentary at all. And from the footage that the guy showed, I would tend to agree it looked a little. I think the thrust of the video was that you had a bunch of CGI characters that were utterly lacking in charm, more or less. And I could totally see the point. So, yeah, it's all opinion at the end of the day. If it's a good movie, it's a good movie. So what we're going to do here is we need to check our output settings and make sure this is going to render correctly. This is shot number 502. It looks like we've already got it set up, so I'm going to hit save and render. I'm going to go ahead and put this into the show so that we can do a camera move as an edit effect. Super, super simple. And then see how it feels in context. So let's jump over here. Boom. Yeah, and like I said, I do tend to agree from what I could see about the character design, Tom. You know, it didn't look that appealing to me. I think what Ghibli does probably does not translate to CGI as well as traditional 2D animation, but you know, you got to try. Is Miyazaki involved with that, or is he doing something else? Is that his thing? I think it probably is, but I don't know. Okay, so 502, and we want the properties to be no resampling, and then the idea here is that once it cuts to her, boom, bop. So right there, we want to go to our cropping, and we're gonna, well, actually, let's just do this. We'll lock those together. So that's our starting point. And then what we'll do is we'll do a quick smash zoom. Okay. And right, okay. Flat lighting. Well, I mean, and that's just a choice. I mean, normally if you're going to do flat lighting with CGI, you're probably aiming towards a what am I trying to say? A toon look, right? Okay, so we got the same situation as we had before where once this stops moving, we need to chop this back, man. We got to keep the story moving forward. So boop, 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 boop. I'll say this. I have never seen one single example of a CGI show that looked good going after a essentially 2D look. Now the Dragon Prince does come close-ish. The Dragon Prince is, I find it to be pretty good, although a lot of people don't like the jerkiness of season 1. I think they made some changes, and I don't know, who knows, maybe they changed it back. But, and I don't do Netflix anymore. I got rid of Netflix like over a year ago, so. But, you know, as far as the Dragon Prince goes, anything that Aaron E. has is involved with, I'm going to give it a good look because I think I respect the guy as a writer. You know, he's paid his dues. He paid his dues on Futurama. He paid his dues on Avatar: The Last Airbender, where he was essentially the showrunner, head writer. Okay, boom, 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 bop. So that's going to cut right there. She is not going to be on that screen very long, baby. All right, so let's get rid of that. And then this is the next shot. So it's going to be on the screen. Let me put this on the big screen so you guys can see what's going on. Hayao Miyazaki. Interesting guy. Interesting guy. So smash zoom. There she goes. Got a little color issue. Blop. Boom. 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 Yep, perfect timing. So when I felt the boom needed to happen, it did. So that's a good sign. All right, so let's get rid of this. And so the good news is 2 shots. The bad news is that's only 5 seconds. So that is kind of bad news. All right, so let's go over here, do a couple things, just sort of some due diligence to wrap this up. I'm going to take the girl here, and the outline color really should not be black. It should be kind of sort of more like that. All right, so let's do that. Control-Shift-R. That's fine. And then what we need to do is we actually need to jump back to shot 499 because I saw something that was a little concerning. Reason 499. Yeah, save all. That's fine. So we go back to 499 and come on, Tahoma, come on. The Clone Wars? Yeah, Clone Wars. Yeah, Clone Wars was good. It looked good for sure. Yeah. I can't say it didn't. All right, so now we're going to go here and we want to do the same thing, the same kind of adjustment we did on the other shot. So I'm going to go here, here, here. We can kind of ballpark it. But yep, we're going to do that. I'm going to just hit Control-Shift-R. It re-rendered that quickly. And when we jump back to our show, we're going to find that this egregious color issue is now fixed. Ta-da. Although, actually, yeah, Actually, I need to fix her outlines as well, come to think of it. So let's go back here. And this is the problem I'm referring to. Boom. On this level as well. There we go. There we go. There we go. That's better. That's better. Okay. Everything's fine. Controls. That's why you gotta do the Final Fantasy kind of style for CG. The Final Fantasy? Well, I don't know if that's true. I don't know what, I'm not sure what you mean by the Final Fantasy style. When I think of Final Fantasy, unfortunately, probably because I'm elderly, I think of, you know, the mocap attempt at, you know, human photorealism that they did years ago. That really, the spirits within or something. Oh my gosh, it was awful. It was unwatchable. Okay. Goodbye, Tahoma. All right, so now we're going to jump back here, and this can be closed, and we're going to create a new file, and boom, 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 boom. Okay, so now I'm looking at my Krita, why are you being so pokey today? Getting on my nerves, girl. Getting on, excuse me, on my nerves. Okay. Now, we're going to do something fantastically cool. We're going to turn this sideways. And I'm going to just jump here on another layer. And indicate TNR's I. Okay, so I'm going to hit the 5 key, N key. This is risky behavior. Oh, come on. Come on, as my friend, the late great Donio used to say. Come on. Uncanny Valley, like Polar Express. Well, and I don't think it's improved. I mean, I've criticized that here at different times. The basic problem with all things mocap is that, and so sorry to those of you who've heard this rant before, but the problem with mocap is that it's not that hard. And I say this from some experience, having directed plenty of actors on film sets. It's not that hard to understand the type of action sequencing that results in an aesthetically satisfying performance that doesn't look stupid. Okay. Astonishingly, to this day, when you see the mocap that is used in like games and stuff, so often they have just the most, the acting is ridiculous. Now obviously to be a mocap actor, you shouldn't have to be much of an actor, because a lot of times, this is what I've referred to in the past, is these characters that are standing around in a you know, just background characters, and they tend to flow, they tend to always be moving, and it just looks stupid. Completely stupid, because nobody does that. Nobody in the real world ever does that. Alright, so I want to check one thing here. But I mean, you know, back in the day, everybody thought Gollum looked pretty good, for example. And I would agree, you know, it was pretty good performance. Okay. What we need to do here, whoops, that's not what we need to do. I'm going to go back to this. Yeah. I gotta get... This is a tricky shot. There's plenty of reasons to think this might not work that well. Okay, so I'm gonna go 503. I need to save this. File, save as. Because it's a bit of a doofy shot. You know, you got to get her eye down there without having the tent lifted up high enough that you can really see. Actually, what's supposed to happen, come to think of it, is... Let's think about this for a second. Yeah, it has to not be visible. Okay, so I got it. I know what to do. What I need to do is block all this in, and then we're going to have her eyes darting around. But then the important thing is going to be to have a very strong shadow cutting way across most of her face. Because otherwise, you're not going to sell the idea that Mel can't see her, right? So yeah, like I said, this is probably one of the stranger shots I've done in this thing. Tell you what, let's go ahead and... It's like, I don't want to use the actual circle tool. Can you get over there? Okay, we're going to fill this. Control-Alt-Q in behind mode. Okay, this can be pretty much black. Okay, so this is just her iris, let's call it, because that's going to be animated. This, okay, yeah, this is her bod. We'll deal with we're going to do everything in its normal, natural, local colors, and then we'll worry about the shading and shadows later. Okay, so there's a flesh tone, but her flesh tone, again, is tilted towards the olive end of the spectrum. Okay, that worked. Okay. Again, shadows we'll worry about later. This is going to be her headdress. Boom. Then obviously there's going to be some ground in front of it. So there needs to be some, like, you know, grass kind of sticking up in front of her, actually. Okay, so now I'm going to grab this color. This is the tent. Okay, so for the tent, it's called background, but actually it's really more of a foreground. I'm moving that up north, saving my work. And I'm back. Join my sister out front, blah, blah, blah. Oh, Mars needs moms. Well, I'm going to tell you guys a little secret. The whole CGI animation thing wrapped up for me, as far as any of it being even slightly interesting, no kidding, around 2005. It's been about 15 years since I've seen anything in the CGI space that was even slightly interesting to me. Basically, there was a really good run from Toy Story for about 10 years, which for me ended with King Kong. You know, and there was a lot of stuff on the character side of it. You know, there was you're Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs and all that kind of stuff. There was some Shrek, obviously. See, I never liked the characterizations in Shrek as far as the way they designed the characters, but the script was hilarious, right? So, you know, what do you want? Good, bad, whatever. And it's all opinion at the end of the day, of course. So, for me, I have not seen anything in the CGI film space in years that I thought was, you know, gotta see that. You know, that's long since ended for me. Now we can move this up. Come on, Krita, why are you behaving so lame today? Everything is so draggy. Okay, so G key. I'm just going to go like this. Really? That's what we're going to do, huh? Okay, okay. Solo this? Why in the... I mean, I get that I'm in behind mode, but why is the color wrong? Hello? Curse you, Red Baron. You've done it to me again. Again, I say. Again. Okay. Few things. Is this TNR? Yeah. Nope, that's her eye. Okay, so let's take that out. So we're not being completely dumb here. And so this is actually the foreground. So this is TNR. Excuse me, Tia. Okay, R key. I mean, no, B key. Sample that. Actually hit the fill tool. Okay, so that takes care of that. Now, what's missing here, what's glaringly absent, is a proper treatment of her eyes. Is this? That's the foreground. Okay, so that is in front. So we've got a little bit of latitude on the drawing side of things. N key. So I am going to just... I'm basically scribbling, baby. I'm basically scribbling. I'm a scribbling. Gonna make it a little bit loose. Little bit loose. Okay. I don't think you're missing much in CGI world. Yep. There was a time when it was pretty cool. Okay, so as long as we're here and thinking about it, why don't we correct that much further though? This is important. We need to get a little bit of pretty dimensionality in here. We're going to kick this up a notch, folks. And now, would you really have a specular highlight in a situation like this? Probably not, but that's okay. I'm going to cut myself a little latitude. All right, so now what I'm going to do is add another layer. And we'll call this SHD. Save our work. G key, black. Okay. So this actually needs to be one layer down. Or two. Okay, that doesn't work. Okay, so let me just ponder this for a moment. Okay, first of all, this says background, and it's actually the foreground. This needs to be absolutely on top. Duh. Okay, and see how bad Krita's dragging? Man, that's annoying. Okay, this is on top, and then this technically it's got to be on top too because the grass goes in front of her. Now you could put it onto two different layers, but let's just keep rocking. So this needs to be up above, and then we can turn this down like so. Okay, we're doing okay here. We're doing okay. All right, so now with that in mind, I would say we want to then balance it out this way. Yes, that sells what we're trying to sell, I would say. Save that. Okay, so now let's grab a hold of the iris. The iris, I say. Alright, and let's make a couple adjustments here. I'm not going to go to Tahoma for this. It's kind of ridiculous to go to Tahoma for such a simple shot. So I'm setting the length of the shot to 32 frames and hitting the A key. I'm completely winging it on this, by the way. Completely winging it. I have no idea if this is going to look okay or not. I'm just going to go with it. Okay. Boop 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 doop. Okay, that's too big of a jump right there, so that's fine. Just kind of close that up a little bit. Okay, and now you could, it's arguable. I think there's one notch too many. Boom, boom, boom. Yep, that last one's not necessary. It's too much. Bop, 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 boom. Okay, right there. Tell you what we're going to do, folks. We are going to, let me think about this. We're going to have to add an eyelid layer, okay? So let's just add a layer, and we'll call this eyelid. This is where Krita's kind of nice, because you can just smack new layers in there really quick and just rock and roll. So what we're going to do is insert a keyframe here. So just hit insert. That makes this frame blank. And now I'm going to sample the flesh tone. And I'm just going to go like this. And because the shadow's over top of it, it'll still, you know, it'll look right. Okay. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is just go 2 frames ahead and hit insert. Okay, so basically this is our shot. I think this should probably be a 1-framer, 1-frame blink instead of 2. And arguably it might be interesting to see what happens if we smack one up there as well. How about that? I like it. I like it. You guys agree? Okay, how about a slight eye close at the end? Not closing the eye, making it... Oh, yeah. Yeah, Darren, great idea, dude. Great idea. Yes, let's do that the most obvious way, which would be, here's Tianara. So why don't we just, again, this is where Krita's great. Let's hit the insert key, and then right here, let's just use liquify, and just kind of close that up a little bit. Let's maybe smack that down too, and I'm going to go ahead and give it 2 keys. And just see how it feels. That may be a mistake, but... And then it could be that we'll have to edit the iris in order to make that work. Okay. That wasn't quite right. I didn't get... Okay, why is that showing a padlock? Padlock? Bizarre. I have no idea what the padlock thing is. But yeah, everything about Krita here today is atrocious performance-wise. And trust me, I've seen it where it just screams. And I have no idea why it's acting so laggy. And I don't want to, you know, well, reboot your system, right? That's not an acceptable solution to me. Not acceptable at all. Okay, but good idea, Darren. I think I like your idea. Let's go boop. And that smacks us up. I mean, it's a 32. Yeah, I love it. Excellent. Excellent idea. Well done, Darren. The only other thing maybe that I'm thinking though is maybe the shadow layer. Let's go ahead and add a blur to it, and we'll add it as a actually I don't want that blur. I want the Gaussian blur. We'll add it as a filter mask so that we can always change our mind later. Okay, that's way too much. That might be okay. So create a filter mask. Yep. So we can turn it off, turn it back on. I would say, yep, I would say that probably belongs in there. The only other thing, this is called background, which is stupid. Let's call this tent. And then what I'm going to do is add a shadow layer to the tent as well, just to punch it up a little bit. Okay? So the tent and the shadow layer, I'm going to hit Control G and put them in a group. And the reason I'm going to put them in a group is so that I can alpha lock the shadow layer, and then I don't have to worry about being careful about where I put my lines. So now what we're going to do is we're going to just take the G key and let's put a shadow underneath here like that. And again, okay, that's interesting. Oh my gosh. I tell you the truth, it's been a long time since I've seen Krita performing this badly, and nothing's really changed on my system, frankly, other than installing the latest OpenToonz. That's the only thing on my system that's changed. And I've seen that happen, where installing one thing all of a sudden causes something else to, you know, have an issue. But what's strange here is I'm turning this shadow layer off. Okay, apparently I drew it in the wrong layer. Okay, stop. Be on the right layer, Dave. Click. It's like I click and it's 4 seconds for it to acknowledge that I clicked that layer. That's just stupid. That's just bizarre. Just bizarre, people. Utterly unacceptable. But, as you can see, I just keep on rocking. Okay. Now what we're going to do is take this and turn it down. Yep, something like that. And then the question is, do we want that to have a blur as well? I think not. Here's why. These are sharp shadows that result from whatever ambient light's kind of coming downward onto it. But what's on our face, there's a lot more distance between the tent and the shadow that it's casting. Hence, this edge would be a little bit softened more. That's my opinion, and I'm sticking to it. Okay, so there's one other thing, arguably, about Tianara. Okay, here's the eyelid. Okay, so yeah, we've got the eyelid layer, which is not relevant at the moment, but what if we cheat and use the eyelid layer in an unexpected way, which is we're going to hit the G key and we're going to actually turn the opacity down to 12%. So, and this would go back here. Come on. And there we go. We've got that little bit of a shadow on her eyelid. And it's the kind of thing that if we decided we didn't actually like it that well, we just delete the keyframes. No big deal. Okay, that's it, guys. Actually, yes, this goes there as well. Okay, so this is one of those strange cases where we're going to go ahead and render this out from Krita. Actually, let's follow our rule. Let's go ahead and add an overlay layer. As long as we're going to try to punch things up a bit, let's do it. So I'm going to hit the B key, and come on. And I'm going to put in a gradient, like so. Just the airbrush, no big deal. Alright, and then I'm going to go to overlay mode. Yep, that does punch it up a bit. And I'm going to actually duplicate that. The second copy of it, I'm going to put in normal mode. There you go. Okay, the only thing left, I would say, is this layer could maybe be improved slightly. Okay, so let's grab the pencil, but then what we're going to do is actually use the freehand path tool. So we don't want this to have an opacity of 12%. Sorry. Yes. Okay, that's it. We're going to render this baby and cut it into the show. So save all. This is shot number 503. Control R. I am going to go ahead and render it to the temp folder, as I often do, though. This is, let me think. Yeah, I'm gonna. Quite a bit of calculation going on. And by the way, I could see one other thing we could do to improve this even slightly more, which would be on this layer, actually, let's add a little bit darker tone, darker value, and smack some true foreground. Yep, Control R, render that. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is, even though it's insane, I am going to jump into Tahoma just to keep the workflow consistent and re-render it from there. I know that sounds crazy, but it's because at some point there might be a change that we want to make, and I want to have that procedural workflow that I can fall back on if I need to. So this would be the grass. What we're going to do is create a, got to keep our naming consistent, 503. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to go File, instantly save as 503. All right, and then we're going to go to our render settings, output, and we're going to change this to scenes 503 into, okay, a little bit of a hiccup. By default, Krita, I've got Krita set to only render unique frames, and actually in this case that's not what I want to do. I want to render all the frames because I just want to bring the straight image sequence into Tahoma. Usually I just render the actual frames where something changes and then redo the timing, because oftentimes it's surprising how often it happens that the timing winds up being tweaked a little bit, right? So I mean, this shot, I must say, I think it came out just fine. So let's look over here. Okay, so now this is an interesting turn of events, which is that Krita did not do, I actually turned this off, only unique frames, but it did not render all the frames. Now it did. Now it did. Okay. So now, and the reason, if this seems stupid, but the reason I'm rendering it twice is just so the next time I come back to Krita, all the settings will be back to the way it normally is, because Krita does not associate render settings with the project that you're working on, or the Krita file. So you have to go in and set your render settings explicitly every single time. So for me, the solution to that, okay, now that's interesting. That's interesting. I did not know this was going to happen. Okay, so just so you guys are like, what the heck's going on? What's going on is that I didn't realize this, but what Krita's actually doing is when I render only unique frames, it's going ahead and taking everything except the unique frames that were already rendered into that folder and deleting them. there's a solution to that problem. The solution is to take this rendered frame, drag it into Tahoma, like so. We're going to import it. We're going to rename it. Let Tahoma decide what the image sequence name is going to be. Wait half a second. Then we'll save all, which will make Tahoma back up all these images. File, save all. So this will probably take a minute because it's got a bunch of images now that it's got to save from where it got them from into the extras folder, which is where it stores plain old raster images. So it looks to me like maybe it's done. And now, this is totally a kludge, guys. Don't follow my example. I'm going to re-render this, which is going to destroy the image sequence that I just imported into Tahoma. And the only reason I'm doing it is so that Krita remembers the proper render settings that I use 90% of the time. Okay? So I'm going to reload this and make sure I actually did this correctly, because I assume I did, and I did. Okay, good. So now we can actually go Control-Shift-R, and it's going to render this out to a JPEG sequence, and we can cut it into the show. Piece of cake. So now we go over here, and we don't need this. So what we're going to do is pull 503 into the show. 503. Scenes. 503. Render. Boom. There it is. Bring in the image sequence at 8 frames per second, of course. 503. We do not want resampling going on around here. And now let's check this. Okay, and that actually comes out about right as far as its edit point. Okay, so what I'll do is jump back to this screen so I can put this on a full screen preview. And let's review from, let's review from there. TNR is playing Golic. Very good. Cover your face. The prince will be along shortly. Okay. Boom. Sneaks down. Ah, we've got a problem. I saw a problem just now. Boom. Boom. Okay. Yes. Again, Darren, excellent suggestion, by the way. Excellent suggestion. Okay, so the problem is that over here I noticed that apparently I didn't resave the project file when I amended the shadow. So this shot right here, you can see the shadow's all wrong. So that's me, my fault. I'm a silly goose. I'm going to come back here, file, we'll save all on that, and then what we're looking for is what, 499 I believe? 499, we've got to make a, and this again is why I work with Tahoma a lot, is because we've got the ability to make procedural changes. So F3 effects schematic, and yeah, this change, apparently I re-rendered it, but I never actually saved the Tahoma file. So boom, boom, boom. Let's take this out. Let's add a blur. This is going to be at, I believe it was, I don't know, probably about 12 pixels or something. I think it might have been 18, but whatever. And then we're going to go add a image adjustment, adjust levels. We're going to make the levels, what we're doing is we're turning down the alpha. So, and I'm just looking up here and I can kind of see that's probably about right. And so that's it. And we'll save all, just to be safe, and then Control-Shift-R, and that just as fast as that happened, it'll be back in the show and looking good. So as you can see, boom, yep, there it is. Let me see if we're getting down. Yep. Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty happy with how this is looking. Uh-oh. I can see a flaw here, too. There's a... When she ducks down, her mouth actually animates slightly off by one frame. Look at that. Right there. That one's egregious. Okay, boom. Re-rendered. Okay, like I said, just as quick as you can make the fixes, they render up nice and quick. And as you can see, everything's, at least I think, yep, everything's fine. Boom. Smash zoom. Little wigglies. Peeking. Okay, the smash zoom I don't think works. Okay, my opinion is this is one smash zoom too many. So let's delete that keyframe, or maybe move that back to the beginning. And then let's just look here. Boom. Yep. And we're going to shorten this shot. Just shorten it. Okay, so we see the wiggle, wiggle, wiggle. Boom. Boom. Yeah, and even maybe a couple frames less. We're real close. That smash zoom works. She goes down. Wiggle, wiggle, wiggle. I actually think this should be even shorter. I hate to do it because, you know, I want to make... I want to get 15 seconds of show done. But, you know, you got to go with what's working. And, yeah, we're looking at 8 seconds today. It is what it is. Yeah, that feels better. Okay, yeah, and again, for the 12th time, good suggestion, Darren. Okay, so that's it. I'm done. I quit. I've gotten quite a few shots done today, and I'm ready to be done. How long have I been live streaming? Yeah, 3 hours. Hey, Eggplant Company. I'm pretty fluent in Krita, but never used Tahoma. I'm downloading it now. Can you tell me the best platform to learn Tahoma? Well, I only use Linux and Windows, and I can't speak to the Linux build of Tahoma. I've used the app image. I would just say, to answer your question, Windows is more stable. Definitely, I've found the Windows, and I've tried Tahoma. I've tried the Linux app image on Linux Mint, and I've also used the Windows version of Tahoma under Wine on Linux. Just because sometimes with some applications that actually works better than using the native versions. So, so asking what you're asking, I assume you're maybe somebody who's, oh, I'm sorry. Okay, so, sorry guys, I apologize. Everything I just said was stupid and didn't make any sense. What he was asking me is where to learn it. Eggplant Company, let me tell you something. Look at the guy that posted a note immediately above yours. Darren T. That guy is the premier guy on YouTube teaching how to use OpenToonz and Tahoma. So go subscribe to Darren T's channel immediately, and trust me, you'll be glad you did. And he actually has a course for newbies if you wanna buy a course. I don't know if the platform for the course is Udemy. You could answer that, Darren, if you're still there. Okay, New Linux. I mean, there is an app image for Tahoma. And I can't speak to OpenToonz on Linux because I've never bothered with it. So, but as far as learning goes, I'm not. I wasn't sure if you were asking about platform to run it on or platform for, you know, getting tutorials and learning about it. As far as learning about it, subscribe to Darren T's channel and you're going to get a ton of good information about how to use Tahoma or OpenToonz. As far as platforms, like I said, I've found Tahoma is a little more winky on Linux. So anyway, that's it for me, guys. I am done. It's been 3 hours. It's been great. I've gotten 3 shots done, and I'm pretty happy. So you guys all have a great day. And as you know,